Hello everybody, how you doing? Sweet Paddy, and welcome back into my parlour for my little parlour podcast. And I'm sure if you've read the title there, you'll know what I'm going to talk about tonight. And it's clones, copies, lookalikes, so many names. And this, I'm not doing this for controversy, but very much just going to give my thoughts. And I think I want to give my thoughts about it, but then I want to give some reasonings. I've been doing a bit of a thinking about it this week. It's really strange because I haven't seen anybody doing one for ages. Now, my friend Joe over at Messer HQ put one up, I think it was yesterday. I'll link that video down below. It's a great video. And he shows the difference. Joe, for years, has showed, over very sporadic times, but he has showed clones on how to pick them out from real ones and giving people the heads up for maybe those around that don't know. But I'm going to talk about it in a more specific kind of way, in my thinking of clones, where they fit in, how it started in a rough way, where it's going to go and how it affects the big companies. Now, I'm going to say something pretty controversial. I don't believe clones affect the bigger companies at all. At all. I don't believe it affects them financially at all. And I think to sort of, I've a wee book here with a few wee notes that I've wrote during the week. It's nothing complicated. It's a couple of wee notes because I wanted to try and keep this in how did clones start? Clones start when somebody copies, somebody's successful, i.e. they make a good knife, they're making lots of money, they're selling plenty of them, so somebody copies them. And I believe, sort of at the beginning of clones, they were to fool people. Now, although that still does happen, I don't believe that is the purpose of clones anymore. On the whole. All these things are really subjective, but I mean, this is just my opinion of clones. Look, when I started, it was a budget channel. This year, I have spent a fortune on knives. Now, a fortune to me might not be for you, but it was a fortune for me, and it was an amount of money I've spent on even one knife that I never ever thought that I would. And that's because I love this hobby, and this year I inherited a wee bit of money, so I was able to spend it. I've nearly spent all that money, so this takes a lot of years. We're going to be going back to the more budget brands and making videos, because I love interacting. I like making videos where we can chat and talk about different things. So that's where I stand on it. I mean, I've spent a lot of money this year, but I'll not be able to do that in the future years to come. But it doesn't matter because I have built up a basis of a great collection that I love because they're knives that I bought that I love. When I first started, I started out with clones and copies from AliExpress. Now, this is before I came to YouTube. And then when I came to YouTube, when I first started, I was easy hurt. And I was putting up videos of these clothes and people were giving me cack in the comments and all sorts. And it sort of hurt because I go, but I can't afford to buy that. I just couldn't afford to buy the knives that I was getting clothes on. Here's one of the best ones I ever got. It's like a copy of a Spyderco, the Para 2. A Para 2 has never had that, has it? So it's a copy, clone, whatever you want to call it. It's a Ganzo. And at that time, Ganzos were making copies of other knives. But they were rough copies. They weren't, exact copies. They put their own branding on them so people couldn't pass them off as something else. And there was a difference that was quite obvious. The bad clones are the ones that try to copy other knives to fool somebody. But I think we've become a bit more savvy than that. The Chinese clones now that still have the brand on it, they've always been there. But they've never affected the companies who they're copying. And the reason why I'm saying that is, and it's the first point, when the Chinese and Japanese and Pakistanis started making knives, copies of knives, right at the beginning, back in the sort of 60s, 70s, 80s, it started to become more prevalent of buying or cheap knives flooding into America. And they were around the rest of the world, but to be honest with you, America is the biggest collecting place for knives, and they have the most makers now of knives. So they're the ones that get copied. And you had Spyderco taken off with knives that were unbelievable compared to what the knives were in the past. So they were copied by the Chinese. Now, at this stage, the big companies, and I'm just going to say America, like I could be from UK, I could be from anywhere else, Australia, Canada, whatever. But I'm just going to use America because that's our biggest audience. And this is not Americans' fault. This is just my view of what has happened throughout the world. So the American companies were selling big amounts of knives. And they really couldn't, they seen a way that they could make more money by getting more knives made for them for a cheap price and brought into the country, and then they could put their surcharge on them. Good business sense. Absolutely brilliant. So where did they go looking for this? Did they go to Pakistan? Did they go to... Japan was doing probably better knives than China at the time. But no, they went to China because it was cheaper. Dead simple. It was cheaper. But everybody knew the Chinese were making copies. Now, and this is where the change has probably happened. The Chinese clicked onto this, started copying the knives they were making, the other Chinese firms were making for big American or worldwide, whatever, industrialists who were using their labour, their cheap materials, and bringing it back to America and putting big prices on it. So the Chinese thought, well, sod yous, we're going to do it. So the smaller factories started to produce copies, clones. You had people like Ganzo, they didn't want to be that, so they put their branding on it. But there was lots of other companies didn't, who were dishonest, who were sending them over, firing them over. But they were selling them in at stupid prices. They were for nothing compared to an American made or worldwide. Again, I'm just using American. Please don't think this is an American thing, because I buy my knives from there because I reckon they're the best in the world. And they are the best in the world. But they're being caught up. And the company's gone back to the sort of 70s and 80s when it started coming in from China. It's probably more the 80s when it really became a problem. But the Chinese do not have the same thought processes we have. They just copy things and that's it. And put them out. If it's a quarter of a millimetre smaller, it's not a copy, it's a different knife. That's the way they work. They just fire them out. So this is what started flooding in the country, and it started to upset other people. But the companies didn't bother too much because they kept buying them from their sources in China, for simply manufacturing was cheaper, labour was cheaper, they could have them made to their specifications, and the Chinese have got better and better and better at making good knives. I mean, Spyderco have been using the Chinese for years now. They have factories that are now set up and knocking out excellent knives with, great specs because they've improved over the years to go to the market, because the American market wanted to stay ahead of the cheap Chinese brands that were knocking out copies. So, in my opinion, the bigger companies who were using the China, and CRKT is another big one. Again, this is not, the other companies that use the markets in China were clever. They were making money from the Chinese market. So, and the Chinese were unpopular then. It was easy to say, oh, look at them putting their clones over to try and outdo us. So the American companies themselves, I believe, started the thing was, oh, look, they're trying to copy us. They're trying to take our business away. They're going to affect our workforce. They were having them made in blooming China. They were having a big majority of their multi-million pound selling was Chinese. Their big branded and expensive knives, it's a very small market compared to their tenacious that were thrown out for for cheap money that other people, that the average Joe could afford. They sell more of them than they do the big ones. You know, they might have one big one like a 940 or the Spyderco Paramilitary or the Delica. You know, they'll have a couple that are just good sellers because they're really good knives. And then they can throw in these other ones along the way. But they've got that basis. That basis. So, the Chinese have now decided, hang on a minute, they're making money off us, let's change. So the smaller companies again now are starting to copy they're starting to copy the Chinese manufacturers. So you're now starting to get, this copying their own branded knives. So there's no change. The people who make copies will go for the best selling copies that's out there because they know they're going to sell them, because most people will only spend at a most $20 on a pocket knife. Because most people, that's expensive for a little pocket knife. When you can pick them up for a $5 and they'll cut every bit as good. They might last long, but they'll cut every bit as good. I mean, the old saying goes, because we're in this community and because we're knife addicts and we love quality and good things, the rest of the world isn't. Do you know what I mean? I mean, over in this country, it's rugby. How many Americans like rugby? Very few. So there's no point me going to the America and copying, bringing my copies of rugby balls over it because they don't want them. So I'll make American footballs and take them over, or get them made in China and take them over because they'll want them. And that is business. There's nothing wrong with that. That is business. That's how we work. But cloning for a copy to bluff somebody is absolutely abhorrent. And I hate that. But let's take it, the gun laws. There's all this shout for people wanting guns banned. And the slogan is, it's not the guns, it's the people. That is the slogan that I'm going to work off tonight. It's not the clones that are a problem. It's not the knives that are copies of other knives that are a problem. The problem lies in the very, very few who try to bluff other people, who try to bluff the innocent, and sometimes they even bluff the experienced. So to me, that is where clones is a problem. That is abhorrent. But it's a very, very, very small majority of people. It is. I honestly believe it's a very small majority. I think we tend to blow it up more than what it actually is. Now, again, that's just my opinion and what I've come across and the friends that I've met and the conversations I've met in the last just over 3 years of doing this channel. So, I mean, that is the problem. This Ganzo is a copy of a PM2 and I loved it. But a PM2 doesn't have an axis. It's not exactly the same size, but it works every bit as good. And I love this knife and I would recommend anybody buy this knife. And because they put Ganzo, it doesn't matter. This knife is a really, really good knife and it's under $20 now. And you could spend the rest of your life as a workman, as anything, buying this knife over and over again. As it dulls or you break it, buy another one. You could get through the rest of your knife. But not as a knife lover, it can't. Not as a life, not as a knife nut. This can't do me for the rest of my life. But it can bring me into a community of people who love knives, and I love seeing other people's knives. Not just the variety. I love the expensive ones. The ones that are unobtainable that I'll never get. I love them. So if somebody's going to copy them and I go and buy a copy, it's not because I'm trying to do that company out of business, because I can't afford it. I mean, it's simple as that. And I think that's what we have to, as a community, we have to just respect the fact that, yes, the biggest part of our community are people who can afford more expensive knives. And I'm talking $50 up, because that is expensive to the man on the street. I mean, when I talk to my brothers about the money I spend on knives, I can remember telling them the first time I spent $60 on a Delica. or £60 it was on a delicate. They looked at me as if I was mad. And maybe that's not the same in the rest of the world, but for people who are not knife nuts, who maybe carry, a Swiss Army knife their whole lives and never go through it, $60 is a stupid price for a knife. So, now, here's a clone that's exactly the same. It's a copy of a bird, and everybody said to me, no, that must be a bird. It is amazing. I have a real bird now. This is a copy of a bird. It's exactly the same. I believe that this was made in the same factory that Spyderco used to get their bird knives made, because the quality is amazing. It's 8CR13, so it's a Chinese steel that's easy to get and easy to copy with, but it's a good enough steel that it'll do any knife. Now, to buy one of these over here in the UK is 30 odd, 40 quid, depending on where you're going to get it. I got this for $10 on AliExpress. It's an amazing, it's just a copy. It may as well just be the real thing. Now, I bought the real thing. And that's right, it's exactly like the real thing. I can't tell the difference. I can't tell the difference in cutting. I can't tell the difference in the quality. I can't find any fault with this whatsoever. So, did I rip Spyderco off? No, because I bought a Spyderco eventually, just to see if it was any different than this. And it isn't. So, rather than it putting me off buying a Spyderco, it made me go and buy one. So, go figure, Spyderco win. They get a knife bought by somebody who maybe otherwise wouldn't. Because this is such a good knife. It's a turn, Spyderco turn. And it's UK legal. So, I mean, for $10, I would never need to buy another one. But I have bought an awful lot of these that were junk in the beginning. And they were copies of Spyderco's, down to the details and all. But they were just rubbish. Their fit and finish was terrible. They fell apart after a while. The blade steel was soft. It wasn't heat treated right. But this one is. But I've bought lots of other junkers on the way. Does that make me a bad knife person because I'll buy copies? But I don't think so. And especially when it came around, I didn't have the money. And, from now on, I'm not going to have that huge amount of money to buy expensive knives this year. So let me just have a wee look here. Yeah, I mean, for those who are just about and are worried about buying clones or buying copies, if you're buying knives off places like AliExpress, there's a great chance that you're not buying from the company that it says on the knife. There's a good chance it's not going to be. But the biggest thing about AliExpress that I know is even their copies, they're selling at a price that would make you know they're not the real thing. Because how many people will go on AliExpress and see something, and then you would have to go and check how much it is really, before you would buy it, surely. And if you don't, that's what you should do. I mean, due diligence on anything you're buying off the internet, you have to do due diligence and try and find out somebody else has bought one or whatever. But when they're so cheap, people will buy them to see them, and that's fine. But they're not. That's not the people that are going to bankrupt Spyderco or Benchmade or whatever. That's not the people. And this is my thing. We need to be more tolerant that people are coming around that are buying these knives, because they're the people that are eventually going to come into our community. And they're the people that we want to come into our community, because the younger ones that are coming in can't afford, maybe they don't have the disposable income that the older generation might have. So they're the people we want to be. It doesn't matter how you get into this, because you will want better knives and you will want to go through that stages. I mean, it happened to me and I thought I would never ever. I can remember pontificating when I'm just going around in videos saying I'm never going to spend £500, and I have. It started off, I'm never going to spend, 100, and it's gone up to 500 now in the space of 3 years. So I'm now buying the knives I swore I would never buy, and I thought people were nutters for buying them because there was no need. But when it came around, knives was more a usable thing, whereas now it's a hobby, and now it's a collecting hobby. And as we all know, I mean, I used to play golf. I started off with cheap golf clubs, the copy golf clubs. They were a copy of a well-known make, and I bought them and I used them for years. And I mean, I'm talking, I used them when I was playing off single figures. If you're a golfer, you'll maybe understand that. When I finished my golf, I was playing off between 3 and 4. Just, I was on that cusp, 3 and 4. And I was back to using a set of clubs that I won in the caravan park where we have our caravan. I was there years ago, and there's a golf course around it, and I won the Captain's Day prize, which was a copy of cloned clubs. And I used them and played with them and played in competitions with these cloned clubs against all these other boys that had the expensive clubs. I was playing with cloned ones. Nobody they would have laughed. Oh, look what Paddy's got. And then when I took the money off them, it made a different sound. So, I mean, it's not just knives, it's everywhere. It's everywhere. And it's business. If somebody's going to knock out a cheap price that the average man can afford, the average man's going to buy that product. Now, if he buys it and he enjoys it, but it breaks, he'll maybe buy something more expensive, and so on and so on. And that's the way, and I know I'm being very simplistic, but that it is. Now, and that's the other thing, the Chinese are not dishonest people, they just have a different work ethic than we have. They're living on a wage that's way below us, and they're trying to make ends meet. Most of us are not living on a wage that is just about getting them through a week. So we have to be very careful on who we criticise. And now those people have actually got us by the curlies, because they've started to make knives better than a lot of the run-of-the-mill companies in the US, in the world. They're starting to make knives better than anywhere else in the world. They have basically blown the Sheffield knife market. Now, it's a market for mostly slip joints, obviously, in the UK. But the Chinese brought so many cheap knives in, people weren't buying them. And they destroyed that market. I believe they were a big part of destroying that market. So we have to be very careful. And now we're buying up. We can't get enough of high-end Chinese knives. And these are the knives that they were making for other companies. They're now not making for other companies. And they're making for themselves. And the people that started using them are now starting to pay that. It's not the clone makers that are going to bankrupt the likes of Spyderco. It's the Chinese companies, because they're going to make better products for a better price. They're actually charging the same price, but they're making better products a lot of the time. Not all of the time, but a lot of the time. So I think we'll have to be very careful about clones and who we want to blame, or who we want to... The person who's just come around is not the person to blame. The person who has a budget where he can't afford it and might never be able to afford it, we can't just push them away and say, you're buying clothes, you're no good, you're taking away our jobs. He's not. The jobs that were given away by the big companies that are now starting to feel the Chinese pressure. They got the Chinese to make them cheap for them. They used their cheap labour. So used is the right word. They did use them to bring the knives over, put their big profits on them and sell them. And that's business. There's nothing wrong with it. But it's now starting to bite the backside, because they're so good at it. And they have companies now, and big companies, that can knock out a better production knife than most of the companies around the world. So I'm probably going over and over the same thing. Here's another thing. If you're someone who is buying a copy and you're that worried about the copy, you feel ethically that you've done something that's wrong, you want to make sure, well, no, you bought it, but you don't want the next person, you don't want it ever to be used as a pass-off. Cut a nick in the blade. Get a Dremel, put a nick across the top of the blade. If it's a cheap clone, just put a nick across the top of the blade, and the next person will know. And if we all done something like that, if we got together, as our community, if we got together and say, well, let's put a nick across them. Why not? I don't think it'll make any difference. But what I'm saying is, there's better things we can do than to tell somebody, don't be going buying that Chinese knife. It's rubbish. It's not. That's a perfectly good knife for $10, where it's going to cost me $35, $40 to buy a knife off that company. And it's made in the same place. It's using the same steels. It's using the same materials. But yet, it's a quarter of the price. Yeah. Maybe, I don't know if I'm clear. I think I'm quite clear. I think I've got it across how I feel about it. Now, the reason that I'm just trying to think, see if I've missed anything here. Right, it's not. Because I know that I'm not going to be able to afford that many big knives, I have to take my channel, I have to keep it relevant, and I will get knives this year. I don't mean I'm going into poverty, I'm not. But I'm not going to be able to afford £500 knives anymore. That's gone. It was a year, I had money, I spent it, that's it. So I was on AliExpress the other night and I seen this. And it's a copy of one of my favourite knives that Benchmade makes. Now, I have bought that knife. I have paid good money for that knife from this company. So I thought, I'll have a wee go. It was $15. Now, the real knife is £130, £135 over here in the UK. And I got this for £10. That's a hell of a difference in price. So I thought, well, is it going to be any good? I haven't bought one in years. So I thought, well, I think I'll just buy one and see. And it comes in a box that's nowhere near related to any boxes you get now. I think these were the old boxes you used to send back to you if you sent your knife into Benchmade. I'm not sure, but it's not a Benchmade box that's used now, I believe. So this is what I bought. I bought a proper. Look at this. Look at that. It's micarta. It's maybe not as good micarta as you'll get from Benchmade, but it's all right. And I'm going to do a video on this. Listen to that. It's near enough exactly the same full strength. In fact, it's maybe a wee bit better than the Benchmade one. It is beautiful. Exactly the same blade shape, exactly the same size. Weight, I haven't done the weight yet. But the fit, finish, the make is absolutely brilliant. It sits a bit higher, but no less better looking for it. In fact, I think it's better looking for it because one, I can get a better grip off it to open it. So, to me, it's an improvement on a very simple thing, which is just the grip of opening it. So I'm going to do a video this week of a cut test with this because it's not going to be S30V. It's not going to be. It's maybe HR. But I want to see if I can get a decent amount of cutting out of it. And then I want to see what it's like to sharpen. So I'm going to do a cutting test on it this week. And I'll show you it. Like just one of my normal cutting tests with cardboard. Then a bit of wood. And then we'll see what it's like to sharpen in another video. So that's what I bought. And that's what started this thing. My head goes. It's just something simple like that can get my head going. Because this... To me, at the moment, this looks like, and it cuts like, an absolute great knife, a great pen knife. And I know I have a lot of subs who would go on AliExpress, and this costs $15, £10 for this knife on AliExpress. Or £15, £10, £15, doesn't matter. It's really, really cheap. It's better than $135. And even if it's just to get a hold of it, to see whether they want to spend the real money, well, who are we to say, no, you can't do that, that's a copy? We're not, we're nobody, we're just ourselves. And as long as that person doesn't try to sell this off as a Benchmade, then he's doing nothing wrong. Nothing wrong whatsoever. And I believe we should just let it alone. It's the same as the gun law. It's not the guns that kill people. It's the people that kill people. And it's the people who buy clones to sell them on as a real thing. That's the ones who are the baddies. Not the average man on the street. Not the everyday man on the street. So I don't know what you think of this. I'm really going to be interested in what it's like in the comments this week. And I have been devil's advocate. I've been back and forward. And I haven't... Yes, I've given some of my views. But a lot of them I've held back. Because I want to see what the comments are like, and I want to see what the follow-up video, how to chase this up, if it needs to be revisited again, or if people agree, disagree, do they agree really badly. I hope nobody leaves my channel because of it, because I'm not out to be confrontational. It's just my thoughts. When I sit and think about the knife community and how good it is and how loyal an awful lot of people are to Benchmade Spyderco, but we have to, we just, sometimes the facts are just there. And if you put the facts into the picture, they do just, to me, it's not the clone that's going to kill anything. It's the people. The only bad part about clones is people trying to pass them off, and the few people that get hurt. And I feel sorry for them, because I could quite easily be hurt. I'm very trusting. If somebody says to me, "I'm selling you a Benchmade," I'll believe he's selling me it. He sent me a picture and it'll look just like it, and I'll believe he's doing it until I get it in my hand. I don't know. I might have clones in my, but most of my expensive knives, in fact, all my expensive knives, apart from friends, I bought from big companies, and you're paying over the odds. But it's when I'm paying that sort of money, I want to know what I'm getting. So there you go. This is this week's subject. This is wee Paddy. It was very serious this week, wasn't it? But look, for those of you who want to know, Sally is doing really well. She's improving day on day. We went out and went up to my daughter's today, and we had our Christmas dinner up there. It was brilliant to have my wife sitting around the table with my daughter and her kids, and we just had an amazing meal. She's in bed, fast asleep, knackered, but there we go. It was a good day. Take care. I'll do a video on this week load, and we'll see what it's like. But it really is. Listen to that snap on it. It's dead centered, right down the middle. It's just beautiful. And my card, the screws, everything just looks great. So for my subs out there who I know are going to go out and buy this because they'll not... Look, I have an awful lot of people, my subs, that I actually know that have been with me from the beginning, who I know cannot afford... A lot of them around me can't afford to go and buy expensive knives. So to get something that resembles or looks like the people they're following... And remember, it's our subs that follow us and keep us going. It's them subs that I want to know about something like this. Yeah, I know they can't afford to go and buy the real one. Or they don't want to save up to buy it. They just don't want to. There's a knife they can go out and buy and use. There's another one that they can go on to AliExpress, get for a tenner and use. It's not a particularly great knife. Even the real one's not particularly great, but it's a good enough knife. It's better than your couple of pound one you buy in the hardware store. So there you go. That's my thoughts. I'll go now because I'm starting to wrap it. I'm boring myself now. Thank you very much for listening. I'll see you next week for another topic. And from wee Paddy, cup of tea time. Goodbye.